Welcome to this segment Manu Tarot presents. Um, this is my first English transmission, my first episode, and today I would like to talk a little bit about the horoscope or the natal chart, because everyone seems to have a very narrowed idea of what really encompasses a natal chart and a horoscope at the same time. First of all, we need to remember that a natal chart is not only the solar sign, which is the one that you all know, which is Aries, Sagittarius, Leo, as an example. Then we have to remember that all horoscopes that you read in a magazine or newspaper, internet, they're solely based on sun signs. And a natal chart is composed of three big, important figures, if we can call it figures, which are the sun sign, the moon sign, and the rising sign, or the ascendant, which is the same. The sun sign, everyone knows about it, and in psychology, the sun sign will be what is called, according to Carl Gustav Jung, the self. Then we have the rising sign, which will be the persona, which is how people perceive us, how we project to everyone around us. That's the rising sign. And then we have the moon sign, that is our emotional aspect, our psyche, our subconscious or unconscious, if you want to call it like that. So we have all these important elements that are the most important three within a natal chart. In order for you to know the rising sign and even the moon sign, you really need to know not only your date of birth. With your date of birth, you only know your solar sign. With the time, then you are providing more information, but then we need also where you were born. If you were born, the city, state, and county, or the province, town, village, all that information. In other words, if you were born in Berlin, Germany, we need to know that. Otherwise, we won't be able to determine your rising sign and your moon sign. Okay, we need to bear in mind that, let's say that someone was born in January 1st, 1972. So the person that was born in China at 10 in the morning is not going to have the same rising sign or the same moon sign to someone that was born at 10 a.m. January 1st in United States, Spain, England, Argentina, or for the matter of fact, in any other part of the world. The person can even have been born in China, in different areas of China, and the dynamic is going to be totally different. And that's why it's very important to know the city, the place where you were born. Now, having that in mind is very important to know then how all these add up to the natal chart or the horoscope. So you have the solar sign, which represents the self, the rising sign, the persona. That is usually what people perceive. So if you have heard that you don't look like an Aries, you don't look like a Taurus, you don't look like a Gemini, you don't look like a Cancer, That's because people have preconceived ideas on solar signs, and they're not taking under consideration that the person is a mix of rising sign and moon sign as well. Usually, when people tell you that, they're seeing your rising sign. So if someone tells you you look like a Cancer, it's highly probable that your rising sign is Cancer. Or it could be that you identify quite a lot with your moon sign, and that's why you're projecting. But usually, the rising sign is what you project. The rising sign is nothing more than the sign that is emerging in the horizon when you're born. When you were born. So if you were born in March 1st, at that very specific time, let's say 10 in the morning, then the rising sign is going to change according to the time and the date. Let's say that is a Gemini. So your rising sign would be Gemini, and this will add a very different dynamic on who you really are. And it might attenuate, it might accentuate your solar sign, or it might improve, enhance, etc., etc. The moon sign is nothing more than the subconscious, your psyche, your emotions, your perceptions, your schemas. Perceptions, schemas is more or less the same. So that's the moon. Now let's give an example of someone that is Aries, solar sign, with a rising sign in Gemini and a moon sign in Virgo. So this is going to add a very interesting dynamic, because everyone thinks that because you are in Aries, you must like sports. You must be a very aggressive person, a very impatient person, impulsive, etc., etc. Not necessarily. That will be true if you have a rising sign in Aries, your solar sign is in Aries, and your moon sign is in Aries. Then you will be extremely impulsive, and your Aries will be everywhere shouting. When you have more than one sign, then the solar sign also changes and adapts to the other signs. Like I said, let's take for example solar sign Aries with a rising sign in Gemini. So what we need to take under consideration that Gemini is a very curious, versatile sign. Is very sociable, and it likes to learn, and is always learning and looking for new adventures at the same time. So that makes an Aries with a rising sign in Gemini. Remember, this is an example so you can understand what I'm trying to say. Will be a person that is very curious, and highly probable this person is not going to have a tendency for sports or being aggressive or or be a daredevil or anything like that. This person is going to have a very interesting tendency to things related with learning, with the mind, with writing, acquiring knowledge. So this person might have an intellectual tendency in his life. He might not even like sports. That doesn't make him something different. He's still going to be an Aries. He's still going to be very impulsive, very assertive. But then Gemini is the one determining how he's going to interact with that self-drive, this being with the fact of being impatient. Okay, now on top of that, we have a moon in Virgo, emotionally, psychologically, in a very subconscious, in a very deep way. Someone that has a moon in Virgo wants everything to be as organized as possible, likes order, and is meticulous, is very detail oriented, and he has a lot of patience when he's dealing with things that he or she likes. Therefore, this add a very interesting dynamic to someone that is in Aries. That means that someone that is Aries is going to be very impulsive, very assertive regarding aspects that involve the mind. And remember, Aries rules the head. And then we have Gemini that is related with studying, and then Virgo that is detail oriented. So you're going to see an Aries that once in a while obviously is going to be very impatient when things don't come out the way he wants or she wants. Everything has to be very methodic, and he likes to spend as much time as possible learning and analyzing things. He might lose his patience, he might be impulsive, but it's around that area. Not necessarily have to be sports, war, etc. Okay, we really need to take under consideration the dynamic of those three elements in a natal chart. Then on top of that, we really need to take under consideration other factors. We need to take under consideration Aries, which is fire, Gemini, which is air, and Virgo, which is earth. Air and fire, they are compatible elements. So we need to take under consideration also the element of those three. So the fact that air and fire are compatible means that air keeps alive the flame, the fire of Aries, because we all know that Aries is a sign that has a tendency to start something and never finishing it, because that's the tendency, and we all know that from the solar sign. But then Gemini, because it's in air, might keep that flame alive, and that's why you might see an Aries that starts and finishes things. But it's because the ascendant or the rising sign might be helping fill out some deficiencies that the solar sign has. Okay. Now we have also to take into consideration the moon sign. In this case is Virgo, which is an earth sign. So Virgo, like I explained, is into detail oriented, but now earth is not compatible with fire or air. So that means that in a very specific time of the life of this person, this hypothetical person, he might have struggles trying to figure out how he could put together his impulsiveness and his desire of learning things, exploring, with being very organized, very detail oriented, because they are not compatible. They're very different different elements, and this shows that at the beginning of the person's life, this was something very difficult to put together. Eventually, at this point in life, like someone that is 30 years and older, have made peace with all this dynamic and have been able to put all this together. Something else that we need to take under consideration is also the quality of the element involved. For example, Aries is a cardinal sign, and cardinal signs, they are prone to action. And that's why impulsiveness and assertiveness is the main trait in Aries. But because it's fire, is related with action, doing something, taking charge, and this kind of stuff. But then Gemini is a mutable sign, and mutable signs, they adapt to circumstances. And this is very interesting because Aries is well known for starting and not finishing. But now Gemini, what it does is if this person starts a project and suddenly something happens, Gemini kicks in and tells the person, you know what, let's postpone this because this is not the right time. We need to adapt to the circumstances. And then once we have overcome this obstacle, then we can go back to what you put aside and finish it. That's the kind of dynamic that we're having here with mutable and cardinal sign. Now we have Virgo, which is also a mutable sign. And like I said, it's a very adaptable sign. So two mutable signs with a cardinal sign, which is very impulsive, is making the person of Aries a more tolerant person with a little bit more patient than the average Aries. Okay? And because Virgo is detail oriented, Aries eventually has to learn, someone that has solar sign Aries and a moon in Virgo has to learn to be patient and detail oriented and well organized. Okay? At the beginning that might be a little bit overwhelming, but eventually the person learns to integrate all this and make a whole person out of this dynamic that I'm talking about. Now, something else that we really need to take under consideration or in account is the aspects that are between the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. There are some signs that they are good in the sense that they facilitate things, they make things easier. And that's the 60 degrees angle and the 120 degrees angle from each one of them. So that means that Gemini, Aries, rising sign, and sun sign, if they are 60 degrees, 120 degrees apart from each other, that means that the dynamic between Aries and Gemini is going to be a little bit easier, and it's going to be like, well, it's going to be really, really easy and simple for the person, to the point that the person might be a little bit lazy because things are very easy and simple for him or for her. Now, there's another dynamic of aspects that are 90 degrees, which is called square, and the opposition that is 180 degrees. There are more aspects, but these are the big major ones that many people know. And these are all about frictions. The 90 degrees is about friction. So if someone has a rising sign squaring the sun sign, that means that the person might have really, really difficulties trying to integrate the rising sign qualities with the sun sign qualities. The same logic applies with the moon sign. Okay, and that's what we really need to look at. If we have an opposition, I mean 180 degrees, that means that the person has a very difficult time deciding, making up his or her mind on what to do and how to do it. At the beginning it's going to be difficult, but eventually, after like 30 years of age, the person will be able to figure out how to manage all these contradictions and put them together and synthesize them. Okay? The person will create a syncretism of different energies. And that's what really make up a natal chart. This is just an introduction, but it's good for you to know all this information. Let me summarize. Number one, we need to take under consideration the sun sign, the ascendant or rising sign, and the moon sign. And for that, we need not only the date of birth, but we need the time, and we need also the place of birth, which includes not only the country, but it also includes the city. and the county, or the province, or whichever way you call it. This is the dynamic that we really need in order to understand the natal chart and have a better understanding of a horoscope. Okay, remember that you can email me at manutarot72@gmail.com. You can also find me on my webpage. I have a new webpage, and you can find everything there, even this this episode in my website. Okay, hope you enjoyed this, and till the next time.